Alec Show podcast.
Smart Alec Show, baby!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you guys for tuning into the 12th episode of the Smart Alec Show podcast. Essentially took the whole summer off, was transitioning from my previous employer back to an internship within the sports space that I love. Had done a bit of traveling. My buddy's brother got married in Xcaret, Mexico. Went down there, had a great time, beautiful wedding. Went on a cruise, Honduras, Belize, Cozumel, Mexico, all beautiful places that we checked out. Just finished moving from Dallas, Texas down to Austin, Texas, because I'm here to finish my last year at grad school. So super excited about all those things. Excited about the grad school stuff, but even more excited to be back to bringing you guys these weekly podcast episodes. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, hit a subscribe down below, hit a like down below. I've never asked for those before, but apparently the call to actions work. So there you have it. Appreciate it. Without further ado, this week's podcast episode was recorded a few months ago with world-renowned business professor and successful entrepreneur Mike Peterson. I'll preface the episode by saying this. A lot of times in today's modern society, whether it be on LinkedIn, TikTok, IG Reels, etc., right? We see this glamorized, luxurious lifestyle of entrepreneurship, right? I don't know how y'all do that 9-to-5 shit, man. I'm self-made. I'm my own boss. You know, I drive foreign whips, have time freedom, time security, financial freedom, freedom from the shackles of the 9-to-5 job and the boss you hate, right? A lot of times we see the bright side, successful, luxurious, beautiful side of entrepreneurship. Well, on today's episode with Mike Peterson, we dive into the dark side of entrepreneurship, the lonely side, the struggle, the strain it can put on your relationship with your kids, your wife, your partner, your family, relationship with yourself, your ability to put food on the table, right? We look at actionable steps that you can take to overcome depression, mental health issues. We look at how important it is to have equity in something and have passive income and how that can exponentially grow your wealth. But without further ado, we'll let you guys get to it. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Enjoy. Ladies and gentlemen, today on the podcast, we've got a legend in the world of business, a man who's truly adorned on UT's campus for his humor and down-to-earthedness as a professor. He's founded numerous ventures ranging from digital pricing technology to water conservation solution companies and more. He's actually coached entrepreneurs from all the way in India and Singapore to this part of the hemisphere in Mexico and the United States and numerous other countries. He's a learned businessman with an MBA and an MS in Technology Commercialization, whatever that means, right? Above all, Mike's an inspiration to me, not only for his boldness and bravery in the entrepreneurial space, but his openness and vulnerability to share a lot of the struggles in that entrepreneurial journey and how he's weathered the storm, you know, with regards to mental health, family life, financial troubles, etc. So ladies and gentlemen, a legend of a man, Big Mike Peterson. What up, Mike?
Hey, Alec, thank you so much for hosting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
No, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, man. It's an honor to have you on, and I know this has been in the works. Kind of, we've been talking about it literally since December of 2020. So here we are, a year and a month later. So glad we could make it happen, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, my pleasure.
So I wanted to start off, man. So how many ventures have you founded or co-founded, and what are some of those? What have been your favorite things to work on, man? What were some of them?
So I've been involved in about 9 ventures, and I chose the number 9. One of those lasted a day, and I, certainly open about that one and happy to share that with you, but essentially a day. But the reason that I settled on 9 is because Robert Kiyosaki said that 9 out of 10 ventures fail. So get started on the first one so that you can get to that 10th one. So that's what I'm working on right now, is my 10th venture. And that one that failed, it was a window washing business that I hustled and went and got a client and washed the windows and spent all day and realized, wait a second, I cannot work fast enough. And, trust me, I grew up pouring concrete, so I know my way around manual labor, but I could not work fast enough to be able to provide for my family. I had 4 kids at the time. So that venture lasted essentially a day and, transitioned to some other things, but I still count it, right? So
yeah, I mean, you went through and tried it out for a day and you realized, it's hard to scale something like that, right? Unless you have more manpower, because you've only got so many hours in the day, right?
Yeah.
It's an issue of capital to bring in that manpower. So I hear you, man. I actually thought of doing something similar myself, with detailing cars. And I thought another time of starting a moving company, but again, it was one of those type of deals. So completely understand your logic there.
Yeah, it's hard to scale some of those things. And when you're trading time for money, and we all do it, I'm doing it now, but not in this moment, but in my regular work, right? So so we all are trading time for money in some form or fashion. It's just a matter of, how much can we actually scale that? So another couple of ventures, if that's of interest. So had the opportunity to co-found a company where we were working on solving a significant problem. It's actually still a problem today, is drought. And our solution was not so much that we were going to make the heavens rain, which that would be really cool if we had that capability, but to manage the water that we have a little bit more efficiently. And so our concept was to connect homeowners with their outdoor irrigation, and then we'd get in the middle there to help manage that outdoor irrigation, so they still had somewhat of a green lawn, able to maintain their landscaping, but at the same time not waste water, which is a very common occurrence when you're talking about outside irrigation. And we were going to connect directly with the utilities. So that was our plan, and happy to go into it if you want, but just ended up pulling the plug on that one after about 15 months. So
okay, would you say that of the ventures you've worked on, was that one of the ones with the biggest pain point, the biggest problem that you really thought, here's something we could really have? Would you say that was the one you were most excited about? Or
so interestingly, yes, from the outside, if you look at it, now this is back in the 2013, 2014, 2015 timeframe, so we spent a lot of time on this one.
Okay.
Here in Texas, we were in the middle of a drought, and in Austin, there's a local lake. It's Lake Travis. You could practically walk across the lake on dry ground.
Wow.
This biblical type things that were just drought related, right? Not
This was
parting the Red Sea.
15. That
Yeah.
time. Wow. That's how low it was. I was gonna say in my college years, it didn't look that low. Like we'd go on barges, on the boats in the middle of Lake Travis and have a good time. So was that something specific to just those few years, that time window, or was it just that we were on a different part of the lake that's higher? Or
no, so what happened is, so the problem was 2013, and just by the way, Lake Travis is a major supplier for water needs in this area, and actually, it's down river as well, right? So it has an outlet. So water levels are dropping. 2014, we go really hard at this, and the reason actually that we pulled the plug is that we discovered that the utilities didn't have an appetite to get involved in any way with the risk, and you can understand this, the risk and the legality of having any association with someone's outdoor water irrigation. Because if something happens where all of a sudden someone's lawn dies, they don't want to be on the hook from a liability standpoint. And that was just one of the issues that we weren't able to really address. More importantly, though, homeowners did not see it as a problem. So even though we're looking at drought and we're seeing, hey, the end of life as we know it is going to happen if we don't have water, we're going to have to leave Austin, right? We're going to have to leave Austin if there isn't sufficient water. The reality is that as we spoke with dozens of homeowners and business people, that the reality is that people just didn't perceive their connection to it as, hey, I'm part of the problem and I'm experiencing this problem, because at that point, every time they turned on the tap, there was still water there. So we ended up pulling the plug. And a few months later, in May of 2015, Texas got like 2 trillion gallons of water dumped on it in the month of May. And so all of a sudden, if we didn't have a problem before when we're middle of the drought, Lake Travis is filled up and overflowing. And so everybody's like, okay, we're good. We're back. We don't need to worry about this thing anymore. Right. So we still have a little bit of, we still have, for example, I live in Leander. We still have water restrictions. We're only allowed to water once a week. And so, so it's still an issue. It's just that it's not as acute as when we were trying to address the problem before.
Yeah. So at that time during the drought, it was a really acute problem. And then I remember that spring of 2015, it was like record levels of rain throughout Texas. I was living in Dallas at the time, and I just remember it was nonstop, man. So it couldn't have been a worse time for awesome, the rain came down, right? But couldn't have been at a worse time for the business. But I guess, yeah, it's interesting, man. It's going to be an especially interesting problem, over the next few decades, with water. I was seeing that Michael Burry, the famous investor from The Big Short, that the biggest thing he's invested in is actually the commodity, around water. And it's just interesting to see how that's going to play out, man. So what would you say were some of your biggest successes and failures and, your biggest takeaways from this era of you trying out these 9 ventures? What were the biggest things you learned that you carry with you, just not only in the business space, just maybe in life, man?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things that I've experienced and one of the things that I share with others is that entrepreneurship is a pressure cooker in terms of your personal development. So using the analogy of cooking a pot roast, which is my signature dish. My wife and I love to host people. I can put that pot roast in a slow cooker, a crock pot, if you will, and it'll take about 9 hours before it's nice and tender. I can put it in the oven and it will take about 4.5 hours before it's nice and tender. Or I can put it in my Instant Pot and it'll take about 45 minutes before it's nice and tender. So using that rather long, drawn out analogy to describe entrepreneurship, when you become an entrepreneur, it's putting yourself in an Instant Pot, and you have to grow in order to succeed. You have to develop some new skills with people skills. You have to understand marketing. You have to learn how to interview people. You have to get outside of your comfort zone. You have to go ask people for money in the forms of a customer or in forms of getting funding of some outside forms. So as you can see, it just puts you in a whole bunch of uncomfortable things. And when we're in that zone of discomfort, that's when growth happens, and it just happens really fast. So that's a positive side of it. Another aspect of entrepreneurship that's been really great is just the opportunity to meet a lot of people. I have conducted personal one-on-one interviews with hundreds of people now. And in that process, I've developed some friendships, and I've been able to connect with people across the world and to get to know people and their backgrounds and the things that they're doing, and really be inspired by the experience and the knowledge that people have, and the recognition that, an education doesn't necessarily come from a university. It comes from life. It comes from doing a whole bunch of different things, and that contribution to life and to society is really interesting. And I've just been fortunate to meet a lot of really great people.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, well, you've interviewed, what do you say, thousands of people. Now you're getting interviewed today. So flipping the script on you. Yeah, man, no, that's awesome to hear. It's something I'm very passionate about as well. And something I really believe in as well regarding the pressure cooker, right? Like I believe there's, schooling has a time and a place, but there's only so much you can learn without the practical application in real life, right? Of going out and doing it and having skin in the game and feeling those emotions and that pressure that comes with actually having skin in the game, right? And a quote that I like to try and live by is some Greek philosopher said it. I don't remember if it was like Plato or Aristotle, who knows, right? But I believe it was, don't let schooling get in the way of your education, because education isn't just schooling, it's life. It's what you do, who you meet, the conversations, and the perspectives you gain from everything you engage with in life. So I love that point you hit on, man, and I think that's huge. So regarding, you know, just what you hit on, right? That pressure cooker versus, you know, low and slow, you know, you got it out on the smoker for 12 hours, right? I think you hit on something big there, and regarding, you know, some people are more adept to take the normal way, right? The traditional, go to college, you know, go work, you know, X amount of years at a company, work their way up that corporate ladder, right? That's seen as a more traditional path, if you will, versus some people, you know, they may drop out of school, they may go all the way through with school, but either way, they're more disruptors. They see things wrong with the world and they try to fix them and they create businesses out of them, right? So what would you say are the biggest differences, man, between these guys who like to be in the pressure cooker versus, you know, the more traditional side of things? What are the biggest differences between someone who's an entrepreneur and someone, you know, who likes to take that more conservative path, man?
I think the biggest difference is a lack of understanding of the risk, the relative risk of taking a, as you phrase it, a more traditional corporate path versus going the entrepreneurial path. And here's what I mean by that is that there's this perception that, hey, if I go out and get a job, that I'm going to have some level of safety and security. And there's truth to that, right? You can count on, for the most part, I'm going to get a paycheck every 2 weeks or every month. You can count on, I'm going to have some, you know, most companies have some benefits of some form or fashion. You can count on some of those things. Here's the reality. You can also be fired. I've been fired twice in my career. I've had contracts and clients, you know, projects have ended. So not necessarily being fired, but it's just the project is over. And so now I've got to get on to the next thing, right? And so that perception that I'm going to go work and then I'm going to have safety and security is false, in my opinion, right? So I'm obviously biased here because I've been fired, but the way to counter any risk is to hedge against it. And one of the best ways to do that is with a side hustle and to create some form of additional income on the side. So if you are doing whatever you're doing at work, so let's say you're a programmer. Well, is there something, and again, there needs to be some transparency with your employer. You need to not be taking time or resources in any form or fashion from your employer. So be transparent and be honest about this. But if you can do a gig on the side where you can create an app or create something, wow, that's really cool. So let me give you a quick example. I have a friend, and I guess I'll keep him anonymous since I haven't asked him permission to share this, but he's a software engineer himself. Yeah. And he works in a field that is completely unrelated from his side hustle, but he runs teams to do software engineering. And then on the side, he has developed an app, which is actually a game to teach kids. And actually, I got a C in geography, so I'm the one that needs this game more than anybody. But he teaches kids how to do geography. Like, they learn geography through this app, right? It's completely unrelated, but he's using his skills. Now, you know, I don't know how many sales he's had on the app store of his game, and he hasn't gotten rich from it, but he's got something that he's built that he can point to as another project He can use the skills that he's developed of, it's totally different. How do I get on the App Store? How do I market it? There's some other things that he's going to learn that then he brings into his regular employment, and
Absolutely.
entrepreneurship makes him a better employee. So
Yeah.
that's one way, right? You
Absolutely.
can leverage that.
Absolutely, man. I think that's huge, right? That's a great example of how you may work in a certain, I don't want to say siloed capacity in your 9 to 5 job, right? But you have a set, list of tasks that you work within, and you really don't deviate outside of those, right? Like if you're a software engineer, you code, you communicate with other people that you're trying to code for this product with, for example, right? Whereas now through your side hustle, you're gaining experience with, talking with customers, potentially talking with developers, people on the App Store, people that you may need for funding, for example, right? You're learning how to market it, how to maybe create the logo for this app, right? Brand it, pitch it to people, right? Maybe you're learning search engine optimization, search engine marketing, etc., right? And then you're able to bring those unique perspectives back into your 9 to 5 job, and you're able to offer a new, unique perspective to your team. Like, hey guys, did you ever think of doing it this way? And they're like, oh yeah, that's awesome. We never thought of that. And you're able to bring that based off what you learned on your side hustle. So I think that's a beautiful aspect of it as well, and a way you can definitely grow from it. So I think another thing too with the entrepreneurs, and I'm curious to hear your opinion on it. I think a part of it is like unconscious confidence, right? It's these more risk-taking people who maybe they're unconsciously confident because they're unconscious of like all the difficulties in succeeding in the venture, but maybe they're just smart enough and brave enough to say, okay, I know the risks, I know what we're up against, I understand the marketplace, and I'm still willing to go in there and try to make it happen, right? Like it's one of those two things. But what are some other, unique traits of entrepreneurs that are crucial, do you think, man? Because I know like a lot of the successful entrepreneurs that I know and look up to are just, people that they're just doers, right? They just get in and they do it. It doesn't matter. I think the quote was, entrepreneurs are people who try to get things done and are oblivious to the resources they currently have to get these things done. For example, if they don't have all the resources in place now, it doesn't matter. They still try to go and accomplish what they need to, regardless of the resources they have. So they'll bootstrap it, they'll do whatever it takes, right? So what are some other things that you think are just crucial to being an entrepreneur, to be successful?
Really one of those things that plays out significantly is just the overwhelming desire to help other people,
Right.
to right the wrongs that someone sees in the world, to come up with a solution that genuinely makes a huge impact on the lives of other people. So here's an example, and one that I've started sharing pretty extensively since I had you in class. So this is different than you probably heard, but
Never heard it. Okay, let's
but there's a company that actually started, this is part of the reason why I share it in class, is they started as a student team at Brigham Young University.
Okay.
And the product that they developed has now become Owlet baby monitors. And what happened is they saw the significant problem of how do the parents of newborns manage their lives and take care of this new little precious baby that they brought home and figure things out. And they realized that because of personal experience, hey, this is a real problem, because it's hard to get sleep at night and you're worried about, is my baby breathing? And one of the common reasons that infants die is SIDS, right? Sudden infant death syndrome, whatever that, I think is the acronym SIDS, right? So it's a really big challenge for people that they then parents worry about that. And so just by putting this little baby monitor on its little sock that fits on your baby's foot, that monitors their breathing and their heart rate and their vitals, all of a sudden you have peace of mind because you're going to get a notification on your phone while your baby is sleeping that, hey, something needs to be addressed with your baby. And it just really clears things up. So that's an example of coming from seeing a problem and opportunity to help other people. And maybe in this case, certainly experiencing that problem as well. And then that overwhelming desire to just help people drives that passion and that path through to go as hard as you can. So
Absolutely.
let me just share a quick story on that one, if I can too. Over Christmas, I was actually back home in Utah, and my brother, I'm giving you too much detail here, but anyway, the short of it is I went and helped my brother in his business. So let me just leave it with that. And one of the women that was working on his team, her son happened to be on this Alec baby monitor team back in the day, right? And so she just shared that, that they just went public, by the way, this in 2021. So they just went public. So he's now a multimillionaire. Wow. And he's been able to have this successful thing. He actually had since left the company and had moved on to some other things, but just this path of being able to connect with, the reason I'm telling the story is actually just that it was cool to connect with I guess a little third party because it's the mom of one of the founders, but just this path, and it you look in the headlines and, oh, they went public, and it's like, oh yeah, that's great, they have this easy path forward. No, it was a decade plus of significant struggle to get to where they were, but they were able to finally make it because they had this passion, and they had this really great product that solved a significant problem for people.
That's incredible, man. Yeah, no, that's inspiring stuff. So would you say that at the foundation of it, like that underlying fundamental ingredient is that desire to help others and genuinely make an impact? Do you think that's something that gives you that ability to thrust forward through those tough times, like you said, that decade of really struggling before they cashed in with the IPO?
Yeah, I think that's one of the key drivers. I mean, there are obviously other factors. I mean, some people are just motivated by money, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean,
yeah, that's a big one.
No, in the interest of full transparency, that was my interest in getting into entrepreneurship. It's like, I could see that as a path to riches. A lot of the successful people around me were entrepreneurs as I was growing up, and had some mentors early in my life that were entrepreneurs. And, frankly, I haven't found success from a significant, I've been able to make things go, but I haven't, I'm not a multimillionaire. Let me just put it that way at this stage. I'm still in the game.
Not yet. We're still in the game. We're still getting there. Still no, that's awesome, man. So based off of that, right? Based off of money and the ability to, see yourself making a lot of money via entrepreneurship, how important would you say is having equity in something? How important is having equity to, financial freedom, as opposed to just being on salary, or, just getting paid commission, or, because a lot of people think that's the safe way, but it's also a risky way, as people, for example, in the 2008 financial crisis learned, or after COVID learned, right? How important is having equity in something to financial freedom, and how much leverage does that give someone, man?
Well, I think that's another key reason why people go into entrepreneurship, and really having equity is another way of saying I have ownership. Mm-hmm. And so that can come in a lot of forms. You have ownership of 100% of your company. Congratulations. What's your company worth? Well, maybe $100 because I have a computer that's used and I could sell that.
Yeah.
So, so 100% of a company that's worth nothing is still nothing, right? Whereas, hey, I only have 2%. Actually, here's another example. So I'll have to keep the details confidential here, but sure. Let me just say it in general terms.
Totally understand.
I have someone that's really close to me, a really close friend, and he just sold his company. And then in the process, they merged with another one, and then he's going to run this now bigger entity. So he's going from $100 million company that he founded and built to a 300, almost $400 million company. And then they're going to grow it and then, sell it at some point in the future. So that's the background. Here's the important part, is that over the course of his building this company, he's brought on several different individuals that have become core to his success.
Okay.
Entrepreneurship is a team sport. You have to have a team in order to be successful. And these guys, as of very recently, are now multimillionaires. This crew, these people on his team, and I'm saying guys in general terms, but which is so cool. And I know that this team, several of the folks on the team personally, they're friends, and I can't tell you how awesome it is to see their success and to see this close friend of mine being able to be a significant influencer and helping them to be successful. That's another reason, like the opportunity to just impact the lives of people on your team in significant ways that wouldn't be possible otherwise.
That's incredible, man.
Oh yeah. Here's my point.
Yeah.
One of those guys has like 2%.
Okay.
2% equity. That's it. He's now a multimillionaire.
Yeah. 2%.
And he has the potential to become a decamillionaire because he's still in this bigger entity. And when they sell it down the road, they're going to get a bigger valuation on this bigger company, right? Yeah. So 2% multimillionaire, opportunity to become a decamillionaire in 3 to 5 years, right? So we're not talking, 20 years from now.
We're talking exponential growth. Yeah, no. Any equity goes a long way. Hey, give me 2% of Facebook. Well, I guess Meta now. 2% of Meta. I'm up there. That's awesome, man. So you got the millionaire network, huh?
I do. Yes, I definitely know lots of millionaires.
Yeah, no, my father, he has a car transport business, and the way he tells it to me is he puts it simply is like, through entrepreneurship, you can create opportunity not only for yourself but for other people, right? If you grind it out and you create a successful business model, you're then able to create opportunity for your loved ones, your friends, etc. Right? One of your buddies is a great accountant. You can bring him on to handle the books. Another buddy's, great at, digital marketing. He set up the website. He can do this, that, and the other. You bring on another family member who has this skill, and you're creating opportunity to work with people either that and have a relationship with and build something even better through that team dynamic, or just other people out in search of something, for a job, for a mission, etc. So I think that's beautifully put. So I wanted to hit on this part because I think it's very important. A lot of people glamorize entrepreneurship, especially in recent years, with a lot of names out there, such as, like a Gary Vaynerchuk or a Dave Ramsey, or, a lot of these other successful entrepreneurs, right? It's not always, as glamorous and as, sunshine and rainbows as it seems when, people are ringing the bell on the NASDAQ and going public and getting all these Series A funding, right? There's also those, dark times when you're almost going under and, you're stressed because you're pressed for time and you're stretched thin and, money's tight, etc. Right? Can you talk to us about, what those times were like for you and the rough times and maybe some of the thoughts you were going through and how you worked to get out of those, man?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned earlier, 8 or 9 out of 10 startups or ventures fail. Mm-hmm. And so if you look statistically clear-eyed, the probability that you're going to have a successful venture is low. Maybe it's 10%, probably it's 20%, but that's pretty low statistically that this particular venture is going to be successful. Now, there are a number of reasons why those ventures fail. There are a number of reasons why, ways that you can increase the probability of success, and that's part of what I teach my students, is how to be more successful and how to iterate enough times in order to transition whatever your initial idea is into something that actually is successful. So with that backdrop, I will tell you about my journey just a little bit. And it's been, entrepreneurship has been really painful in a lot of ways. So I battled really deep, dark depression for 3 years, all of 16, 17, and 18, really dark. And, there are days that I didn't want to be on the planet anymore and thought that my family would be better off if I wasn't on the planet anymore. So a whole series of things that I did to get out of that, and we can go into it, but certainly it wasn't just, all of a sudden I hit, my company succeeded and my depression ended. That still hasn't happened, right? So the other thing, some of the other things as part of that, and certainly my depression hasn't been helpful in my family relationships, because when you're not feeling great about yourself, you're not feeling great about life, it's harder to interact and feel great about other people. And so my marriage certainly has suffered, still have some ramifications of that. And, my wife and I talked divorce, and we talked about some of where things were going and some of the challenges that we were having. And, those haven't been fun conversations. And we went to a counselor, and I've spent even more time with a counselor, both as part of the depression as well as the marriage stuff, because it's both are worth fighting for. Both life and marriage are worth fighting for. Significant financial struggles. So, I liquidated my 401k that I'd built up over the early half of my career. I used to work for International Paper for a number of years. And so, I built up a little nest egg and ended up liquidating that in order to make ends meet and in order to help fund my startup ventures. And, now I'm just starting to get that built back up, my savings built back up, so that I've got some form of retirement when I get there. So, and, as part of that, ended up filing for bankruptcy during the middle of this. Not proud of that at all. There's nothing good about it. There's nothing good about filing for bankruptcy. It's just, for me personally, I guess the one good thing is I don't have my creditors calling me all the time. So I guess that's a positive, but not a lot of repercussions with that still that I'm paying the price for.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, I just want to say what you just did right there is extremely brave. And I appreciate, the openness and the vulnerability, talking through, the mental health struggles and, the familial and financial things you went through, man. It's not easy to talk about that and open up about that, man. And I just want to say, I really appreciate your openness. I know when I was in your class for entrepreneurship and you opened up about these things, it was really eye-opening for me to see a man that's, had so much success, in academia and in business and just in life in general, open up about their struggles and be vulnerable and talk about how they went through it and got through it. That was very inspirational for me and taught me a lot as a, young, impressionable dude in college. I appreciate your openness, man. So do you think a lot of times the source of maybe the mental struggles when it comes to just entrepreneurship or financials in general is that a lot of a man's self-identity is tied to success and like putting food on the table for the family and things of that nature? And when we're struggling with putting food on the table, it'll tie into our self-worth. Do you think was that something that tied into it for you? And do you think that's a problem for, us men in general, just that tying our self-worth to our, financial success and, success just in general?
Absolutely. So, I don't want to project onto others, but certainly my personal experience has been that my identity has been, and in a real sense still is, very closely tied to whatever my job is. So I'm a professor at the University of Texas at Austin McCombs School of Business, right? That's part of my identity that I have right now. And guess what? I've never once said that to someone and felt embarrassed, number one, and then had someone kind of snicker and be like, wait, Mike, most of the time the reaction is like, wow, that's really cool. I'd love to do that, right? That's my dream job. That's usually the reaction I get. So certainly, and I mentioned before that I've been fired a couple of times. And then during this period of entrepreneurship, I'm struggling like crazy to make some of my ventures work. And it's still struggling today, right? I'm still trying to figure stuff out, but make my ventures work. And, at this point, especially after, 2014 timeframe, I now have 2 graduate degrees. I have loads of experience. I'm a personal guy. I'm a hard worker. Mentioned I grew up pouring concrete. I am not afraid of getting my hands dirty and going hard. Tremendous amount of work ethic and just, going after it. So at least in our culture here in the United States, it's like, well, if you work hard, if you get an education, you are going to be successful. Well, that's true, but maybe not in the way you thought, maybe not in the timeline that you thought. And in a lot of ways, I'm still on that path of trying to figure out at least some of the bigger, my basic needs, I guess we're meeting now much better than I have been in the past, but that, that I'm not a millionaire, I guess. And it's okay if I never become one, but it's just, I'm not today. And, that's been part of that journey where I've been going. So.
Yeah. It's, success isn't linear, as they say, right? There's ups and downs, and it's not just this linear path of once you get degree and do XYZ, you'll reap these rewards, right? So I think that's a huge point, man. And yeah, I think it's so interesting talking about self-identity, right? Like, I grew up playing soccer. I tied, my identity to being a soccer player, to being a goalkeeper, to my success on the field, or success as like a captain of a team, and being able to lead others and things of that nature, right? And once that was over, I felt like, this sense of emptiness in terms of like, okay, well, soccer's over. My self-identity / self-worth is no longer tied to my performance on the field. Okay, so who really am I? What really am I? And then you see that a lot with like professional athletes, right? They have a hard time leaving the game that they played their entire life and made millions off of, right? Then they struggle to find something else. Some go off the deep end, some get into golf and do well, whatever the case may be, right? But we all have these things we're like tied to with our self-identity and tie our self-worth into. And what was freeing for me is I took like a sports psychology class, and it's called like detachment theory, right? Like detaching yourself from whatever it is you do. Like, you're not what you do. You're a person outside of those things, right? You have other interests. You're a person like worthy of love and respect, regardless of your success or your abilities in this one area of life, right? Your worth as a human is all encompassing. It's not just tied to those things. So I think that was a freeing thought for me that allowed me to, and it's still a struggle all the time, right? Like, you still feel tied to all these metrics and things, right? But I think that for me helped with, a lot of those thoughts. But what were some other things that you were able to do, to help yourself have the perspective that you have now, which seems very grateful and optimistic and hopeful for life, and like you see the beauty in life now, whereas maybe in the darker times you weren't seeing it. What were some of these maybe small or big changes that really allowed you to be in the better place that you are now, man?
Yeah, so maybe it might be helpful to talk about some of the practical things, and then if it's okay, I also talk about some of my own personal philosophy or my personal background as well.
You're the special guest, man. Whatever you feel comfortable talking about, I'm all for it.
All right, sounds good. Well, so in terms of beating depression and, again, and I still have some dark days. Like, don't get me wrong. There still are some days where, it's just life, right? It's just life. We all have them. But especially when I was going through the really dark times, I was trying to find anything to get out. And so I invested a lot of time. I started exercising. I started swimming during that time period. That helped. I spent some time doing, just going on walks. I increased my nutrition, so that was helpful. I went and got a full physical because I thought, well, heck, maybe I have a tumor or something or some chemical imbalance that's messing with my head. And I mentioned that I went to counseling. We explored medication as an option. So I certainly put that on the table, but based off, off of the counsel from my counselor, say that, my psychiatrist, he recommended that, at least where I was at that time, that medication wouldn't be the right approach. And, I'm a little bit more, I prefer, I don't love taking pills, even vitamins, right? So I was glad for that diagnosis. But anyway, and then one of the things that really helped as well was writing. And so I did this writing exercise, and this comes from a guy that's a little bit controversial. His name is Jordan Peterson, no relation.
Yeah, but, as controversial as he is, I'm a tremendous fan of Jordan as well. Not saying I agree with everything he says, but I think a lot of the stuff regarding mental health can be beneficial, especially for males, trying to pick it up. So I feel you there, man.
Well, so giving the credit where it's due, he's got this program that's, I can't remember what it's called, but it's, it's like $70 or $80. And part of it is to do a writing exercise where he gives you some prompts, but you write about what is your life going to be like in 5 years if you stay on the path that you're on. Well, I could see I might not even be on the planet because I wasn't happy with my life and I was struggling so much. I certainly, even if I somehow survived mortality, then I would not be married still. I could only imagine what my then 5 kids, their lives might be like if I wasn't here, or if I continued to be depressed. I mean, I could see a lot of downsides. Yes. And that helped. It just gave me some perspective because I was writing what I thought might happen in 5 years if I stayed like I was, and if I stayed on the path that I was on. And obviously, in contrast, there were a series of writing prompts to write, well, what do you want your life to be like? Well, heck, that's an interesting perspective. What do I really want my life to be like? And so just the exercise of trying to identify, well, gosh, I really want to dance with my daughter at her wedding. I have 4 daughters, so I've got more weddings to go, but I just got that opportunity 2 weeks ago to dance with my daughter at her wedding. Unbelievable experience. That, like, understanding how incredible that single experience is will help me for a long time, getting through some really dark stuff, because that was such an amazing experience to dance with my precious daughter, right? And I had envisioned what that might be like years ago in anticipation of that event, and it helped. I spent some time with my ecclesiastical leader, my bishop. So I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, very religious. I continue to study scripture, continue to pray. And sometimes my prayer was, where are you, God? Where are you? And, my faith was shaken, and I'm struggling so much to provide for my family, and just seemed like such a simple thing. God, please help me to be able to provide for my family. This is something that I felt that I needed to do as a husband, as a father, that was part of my responsibility. And, I just had that prayer answered. Mm-hmm. And God just came down one day and took the depression. And this was in 2019, early 2019, in fact, almost exactly almost exactly 3 years ago now. And I just woke up one day and realized that the depression was gone, that the sun was back on, and that, it was like someone turned the sun on, right? That I could see, and there was light, there was hope back in my life. And, my financial struggles didn't end in that moment. I still had some more things. That things have gotten way better since then. But just having really a miracle, a personal miracle. There's just no other way to say it. And I know that my path is going to be different from others, but I just want to give hope to others that there is a path through, and your path is going to be different than mine. And God does care. He is listening. So please turn to him, and whatever way that looks like for you, but that he'll help you, even if it's just strengthening you to get through it, to stay on the planet a little bit longer. Because here's the message: we need you on this planet. We need everybody. We need the contribution that you'll make as a husband or father, as a mother or wife or daughter or nephew or niece, or whatever that contribution is, that you make a significant difference in the lives of your family. If nothing else, just start with your family. And if your family is dysfunctional, and all of our families are, a little screwed up, and I'm, certainly created a family that has plenty of dysfunction with all my mental health stuff. But the reality is that there are plenty of people around you that need your voice, and need the unique contribution. And maybe it's just, hey, you've been able to endure depression for a decade or two decades or whatever that is, and you've been able to make it day by day, and you can just reach out enough to help someone else in their own journey. Absolutely. A little bit, because you understand what it is that they're experiencing.
Absolutely.
That's a powerful message. It's really different when, someone with whatever their perceived success is shows up and says, oh yeah, just, suck it up, you're going to be fine. Exactly. It's different when someone can sit there with you and say, Mike, I've had some dark days. Tell me what's going on, and I'm just here to listen.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the contribution. That's huge. That'll help someone stay on the planet another day.
That empathy and that understanding from having been there and gone through it is huge, and people appreciate it. And you listening to them makes them willing to listen to you and what you have to say, knowing that you understand because you've been there and you listen, right? And thank you for that. That was a huge piece. That was it right there. That was beautiful, man, in terms of practical applications to readjust our perspective and combat depression and just really take control of our mental health again, man. I think that's a beautiful thing. And I want to say, one, I really respect that, you were open to seeing what was up with, exploring medication, but elected that, for now, we're going to try some more natural remedies. Let's eat better. Let's, make sure our nutrition is up to speed, our physical health, right? Exercise and get the endorphins flowing, right? Feel good physically, to then focus on, the mental aspect, going to counseling, journaling. I've barely started journaling in the past year, but I think it's also a beautiful thing, right? Writing out your thoughts, your emotions, seeing it on paper, so then you can gain perspective about what's going on in your head. And you brought up Jordan Peterson. He has a great bit that's about 2 minutes long, where he talks about we should be teaching our kids to read and write, not necessarily for just the sake of reading and writing, but once you're able to write, you're able to think, you're able to make coherent, logical statements, write them out, and visualize what's going on. And that allows you to do the same within your own mind as you go about day to day, right? That articulation is powerful. That self-awareness is powerful. So that's awesome, man. And you mentioned how your faith is another really big aspect of it, right? Just realizing that, like you were saying, you're asking God, where are you? Like, why are you putting me through this? But maybe that was the beauty in the struggle, as they say, for you to carry that cross, so to speak, so that you're able to show others that are going through similar things, like, hey guys, there's light at the end of it and it'll come. And what's beautiful about it as well that I really respect, Mike, is that your circumstances didn't change per se, right? You said the financial struggles didn't go away. It wasn't like every day was just dandy and sweet after that either. There were some tough days, but your circumstances didn't change. But the biggest thing about it was that your perspective changed, right? You all of a sudden were seeing those beautiful moments in life, right? Like, dancing with your daughter at her wedding, you said, right? And that's something you put in the mental cookie jar in your mind, right? Like those beautiful moments of life that you carry with you throughout, that you're like, even through the dark times, let me reach back into this mental cookie jar, pull out a cookie. And those are the moments that get you through, right? Like, for example, that beautiful moment with your daughter, you're like, okay, despite all these tough times in life, those are the moments I live for. Those are the moments that get me through, that I look forward to in the future, and that get me through when I think of the past. Or, having it in your mental cookie jar that I overcame depression and I'm now able to inspire others. That gives you motivation and confidence to get through the next one. I've already done it before, right? So just huge stuff right there, and just beautiful perspective, man. And I think that's such a huge thing, man. Do you think, like, in our culture here in the United States, a lot of the times we're delaying our happiness, we're delaying our gratification, right? Like, oh, once I'm more financially stable, I'll be happy. Once I've got the degree, I'll be happy. Once I've got the job, I'll be happy. And then life starts to pass you by, and the depression lurks up. Do you think that what you described there, changing your perspective, even though your circumstances haven't changed, is like a big key to combating the depression and gaining back that, that perspective, seeing the beautiful aspects of life?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the case. And really it comes down to a single word, and that's gratitude. And this isn't me speaking from a place of, hey, I'm doing this really well, because there's a lot of days where I'm like, gosh, why can't, why is my life a mess? And why can't it, there certainly are some days where I'm not grateful, I guess, is what I'm trying to be candid here with. But it's actually, I'm looking out my window here. It's actually a cloudy day today, but I just think about the last time I saw the sunset. Like, we live on a beautiful planet, like really, really beautiful planet. No matter where you live, I'm well traveled. Everywhere I've been, it's beautiful, different, right? I've been to the desert, I've been to the tropics, I've been to the mountains, I've been to the Swiss Alps. I mean, I've been to some really beautiful places. They're all different, but they're all beautiful.
I'm jealous,
and
man. I'm jealous.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I said I'm jealous, man. You've been to the Swiss Alps.
You gotta go.
I gotta get my travel game up, man. I'm trying to see some sunrises and sunsets all over the globe, man. Like I said, I went to Puerto Rico, went down in Mexico this year with some buddies. So been trying to get the travel game up, but we'll get there. We'll hit the Swiss Alps one day.
Yeah, definitely add it to your list. It's spectacular. And Puerto Rico is one that's on my list of places I'd like to visit. So
beautiful, man. Beautiful. Highly recommend it. Great bang for your buck. Food, culture. It's cool.
yeah.
Let me know when you're thinking about it. I'll give you the spots, the recommendations.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. Be good.
Absolutely, man. So you say gratitude, that's the word.
Yeah. So the point here, though, just to sum it up, is that there is something in our lives every single day that we can be grateful for. And I think the key is to actually write it down so that you have evidence when you have those dark days, and you can go back to a week ago or a month ago or a year ago and say, well, wait a second, January 7th of 2021, I was grateful for this. And then hopefully that memory of being grateful will help you. I think that gratitude perspective helps you to be more interesting, more marketable, easier to like as a friend, as a person. right? So even if you're going through some dark stuff, if you're grateful for the kindnesses that are extended to you by other people and the simple gestures and just the smile or whatever it is, if you express that gratitude, that's attractive. That's attractive. And so that opens up the door for friendship. That opens the door for, relationships. That opens the door for business associations and opportunities. And if you're the person that is always grateful, that's the kind of person that other people want to be around.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's one of the keys that has helped me as well to get out of the depression, is looking for the things that, and we've got a lot, especially here in the United States. My goodness, we live in the United States of America. How can we not find, like, if you can't find something to be grateful for in this great country, then that's, you've got a bigger problem. So
Yeah,
definitely go
no,
see a counselor. So.
absolutely, man. While I'm empathetic to a lot of the struggles that, people have, here in the States, I think, like, if you listen to someone like Yeonmi Park, she I was listening to her talk on the Joe Rogan podcast about what it was like in North Korea, how she got out, and that puts things in perspective. Like, man, people are really going through, you know, just gruesome, terrible, terrible things in certain parts of the world. So just the fact that you have people that care about you, you have relationships, you have food to eat, you can walk around at, all times of the day, you really have that freedom is a beautiful thing, and something to have perspective on. And I think what you hit on regarding, one, that network effect of having a grateful perspective, I've realized it in my life in terms of, like, despite, going through tough times or going through certain things, familial wise, etc., if you have that grateful perspective, it attracts, you put out this energy that attracts a similar energy in other people, and they appreciate it about you, and you're able to make more friends, and not only more friends but more genuine friends, because they see that gratitude in you through your actions, through your words, and they try to reciprocate it, right? Because at a human's core, no one wants to be, despite a lot of the cynicism in the world, like, no one wants to be, a dick, for lack of better words. Everyone wants to be regarded as a nice person. So, people try to match that energy as much as, they possibly can, depending on, how deep they've gone with themselves. So I think that's huge. And I think what you said about the evidence part of a gratitude journal is huge, right? Like, I was struggling with a gratitude journal for a while, right? Because I was like, I feel like I think some pretty grateful thoughts in my own brain throughout the day. Like, why do I have to write it down? I started to feel like it was an annoying chore to do every day. I was like, I don't like doing this. I feel like I'm forcing gratitude. Like, I'm already grateful. Why am I writing these things down? So I stopped for a little bit. And then, like, some stuff came up, in family life. And then, just like financially, with, being out of college now, getting my own place and work, and all these other financial obligations, right, where things were kind of tough and inducing a lot of anxiety, right? Like, which trajectory am I on, career moves, the podcast, grad school, etc., right? Like, a lot of decisions weighing over my head that really had me not in the best of spirits, mentally. And it was at that exact moment that I realized the importance of that gratitude journal and having things written out, because it was a matter of evidence at that point. I was thinking, I wasn't any longer thinking any of those grateful thoughts and perspectives. I was more of in a lower state, a depressed state. And I was like walking my dog, and I was like, man, I'm looking at the sunset differently today. I'm walking around not appreciative of, a lot of the simple things that I normally am appreciative of. And I was like, man, now I see why the gratitude journal is huge. It's not saying that you're not grateful throughout the day, and it's not saying that you're forcing gratitude upon yourself, like you're making yourself write down something that you're not actually grateful for. It's a matter of evidence, right? So in the dark times, you can look back and say, oh yeah, I do appreciate that. I do appreciate that friendship. I do appreciate that simple thing that, me and my friends or my family go do that I enjoy, whether it be going to, play soccer, or, going to watch a movie, or, whatever it may be. I realize the importance of evidence, man. So I think that's a beautiful point that you hit on as well. So I know you're a busy man, Mike. So we'll start wrapping it up, man. So I understand that you have a website, correct? And you have an email newsletter. Where can people reach you, man? Where can people tune into what you have to say? Because I think it's what you have to say is powerful stuff, man.
Yeah, thank you. So the easiest place would be to go to mikep.pro/book. And the reason for that is that just gives you a simple login form. I send daily emails now, and I'm actually in the process of writing a book about how to become a professor from the non-traditional path, right? So, and I'm having a blast. It's been really fun. My website it's kind of long, so that's why I gave you the other one, but it's Michael S. Don't forget the S, Peterson.com. And so pretty straightforward, but again, I send daily emails, got lots of stuff. Follow me on LinkedIn. It's Mike Peterson, MBA, and happy to connect with you, and would love to be able to help in any way that I can with your own entrepreneurship, startup journeys, or if you're, happen to be one of the few crazy people out there that would like to become a professor at some point, certainly have a little bit of expertise that I've lucked into, I guess, but it's been a great journey, great opportunity to work with incredible students and incredible colleagues at the University of Texas. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. It's been a great ride, and I'm appreciative that you've been on the ride, man. So yeah, I'll go ahead and drop all your info when I drop the episode, man. Any last remarks or advice for business professionals, entrepreneurs, or just people in general, man?
yeah, maybe just the closing comment would be, despite some of the challenges that we talked about in pretty real way here, with the challenges of being an entrepreneur and of going on that journey, I can tell you, though, it's still worth it. That growth that comes is really worth it. And that's why we're here, in my opinion, right? We're here to learn and to become something more, not necessarily to just get stuff or just to buy stuff. We are here to become. And so if you can go on that journey in whatever form or fashion, but to continue to work on yourself and to become the best version of yourself, however that path looks like for you, certainly entrepreneurship is one that I highly recommend, and that everybody should consider, if for no other reason, for the personal development. So that would be my parting comment. And Alec, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, Mike. It's awesome, and yeah, man. It's, ladies and gents, it's not necessarily the destination, but the journey, and not necessarily the result, but the process of becoming your best self and living this beautiful life, guys. So powerful stuff, Mike. Appreciate your time, and yeah, we'll talk soon, man.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Don't be such a smart aleck.